Hey, what's up, Patriots? Welcome to Kevin Cast. So, been struggling the last couple of days. I haven't been really able to follow the news. My back's been really jacked up. But what I thought I would do is kind of show you guys how I figure out what's going on in the world, and kind of talk about what I see as I see it, and then we'll all kind of come together on it. So, let me know if you have any comments, likes, whatever, dislikes. Something else you want to hear, I'll be happy to get into it with you. Let me see. Let's do this so I can see what you guys are saying. There we go. All right. So the first thing I like to do is get into real clear politics. So a lot of you guys wouldn't might not really know about this website, but what it does is it's basically like it brings together news from all these different sources, a lot like the AP, but without the agenda attached to it. They just put whatever is out there right here. So Wednesday, January 13th, and then they give you news articles, and then they give you editorials. The funny thing about the world is these aren't really news articles anymore. They're just all opinion articles, right? So when you look at it, it used to be news, right? But when you look at it, you'll see about whataboutism and political hypocrisy. There are two justice systems in America. Ask my nephew. Abraham Lincoln's warning about the perils of mob rule, right? So you just kind of go through these. It's all falling apart. Newsom fights recall effort in California. Trump's legacy in Israel. Dems want to bring down anyone who ever backed Trump, right? So just by looking at the title, you can figure out, kind of where they're going, what their intent is, who they're hoping will click on it. And it kind of tells you how they're spinning things for the day, right? So, let's see. Here's an editorial that says Parler deserved to be taken down, right? There's a difference between, and then I'll give you my takes on it as I go through them, right? Parler deserved to be taken down. Well, before I even open it, and I might not be able to open it, some of these have subscriptions attached to them. There's a difference between deserving to be taken down and whether or not it should be lawful to take somebody down, right? So maybe Parler's full of jerks, right? Maybe I'll flat out tell you I've seen people say racist things on there and horrible things. And what I do is I don't follow those people, right? So my rule with Parler has been I'll basically follow anybody who likes something I say or comments on something I say. And then as I check my feed, what I'll do is if they say something I think is jacked up, like I don't give them attention, right? I unfollow them and I move on, right? The reason why I do that is because we have to be self-moderating, right? And the best way to do it is to say, hey, like, I don't agree with that, so I'm just not going to listen to that. Like, it's not like when somebody says something terrible about Jewish people or about leftists and about violence and things like that, I choose as a person that I don't want to be involved with certain things that people say. Similarly, if you choose to not frequent a business that you don't like, that does things you don't like, that's your call, right? And that's how free speech works, right? Is if you say things that are wrong or evil all the time, people generally don't want to follow you. If you say things that are accurate, even if they're not nice, people can follow you. Like, people will go, okay, like, I disagree with that, but I see your point. And that's kind of how social media works if you treat it properly. So if you want to fix the problems with social media despotism, autocracy, autocracy, whatever you want to call what they're doing. I mean, everybody says censorship, and I think it's really lost its luster. Censorship to me is an individual thing. I said this one thing, and you said that's got to come down, right? The larger version of that is like stripping your voice from you. Is going, no, you're not allowed to talk anymore. No matter what you say, no matter how you evolve on a subject. And I don't know that that's censorship. I think that's tantamount to book burning, right? That's beyond, right? I haven't talked about it yet today because a lot of people already know, but my nose is I have I had nose cancer, well, skin cancer on my nose, and I had to get it removed. So that's what the bandage is. I have to keep it moist. I forgot to share the stream with my Facebook people, so let me do that real quick. See how that's going. My videos, no. Gotta see how to do this anyway. I've never done it before. Let's go. My channel. How do you do it? All right. Cool. Looks like we're live right now, so I can just go like this, hit this up over here, and go like that. No, didn't mean to do that. Sorry for taking up your time with this. Do we have anybody in channel yet? Let's see. Let's move you over here. Let's see, do we have analytics? 2 playbacks, stream settings, stream health. Okay. Nobody in chat yet. That's cool. I'm live right now. Hit me up with any questions. So, okay. Sorry about that. I'm still learning this whole streaming thing and how to be a cool dude on it. Really, honestly, I'm less interested in being cool than sharing information, right? So let's get back to the whole Parler shutdown. So I believe there's a difference between saying, hey, you can't say that, and saying you're not allowed to talk ever again. That's the difference between, cutting somebody's tongue out and also just, scolding them for saying something inappropriate, right? What they're doing right now is they're taking away people's means of feeding their families. They're taking away people's means of assembly, right? Like the modern form of freedom of assembly is online, right? So constitutionally speaking, when they've locked down the nation and nobody's allowed to go anywhere or do anything that isn't specifically work, what's left? It's the internet, right? Like, I don't think the lockdowns would have worked at all if the internet didn't exist. They just wouldn't have. Everybody would have been like, fuck off. Most people wouldn't have known about it. Most people would have had no idea about what was going on with the lockdowns, whether or not they were supposed to lock down, finding out the rules for your city or your locality. You wouldn't have had any clue. And so you would have just went about your lives. The lockdown doesn't work without the internet. They never would have. You might have got it through a newspaper or whatever, through your local news channel. I don't know. I think a lot of people watch local news. I don't watch any news anymore. I don't trust them. And that's why I was kind of showing you guys this is I go through what everybody's saying as much as I can, and then try to figure out what the spin is, because that's all that matters. What the story is doesn't matter. The story could be George Floyd, right? And you saw how the media played that from both sides, right? On one side, you have these are peaceful protests. This is people standing up for what they believe in, and they need to be heard. They deserve to be heard. On the other side, it was like the world is on fire. And it was actually somewhere in the middle. So a lot of times you'll look through these, through what's going on Real Clear Politics or whatever website you choose to use, and you'll see where the spin's going, right? And then just have to strip all that away and try to figure out what the real problem is. So in terms of freedom of speech on the internet, my answer has been and always will be, probably always will be, is freedom of speech needs to be extended to all media. All right, media's not going anywhere. The internet's not going anywhere. TV's not going anywhere. There's no reason why Don Lemon or Chris Cuomo can get on their shows every night and cover up for violence, incite violence, right? Like CNN's famous picture where the guy's standing and he's announcing, and it literally down at the bottom it says in the chyron, it says fiery but mostly peaceful protest. Like there should be a special classification at that point, right? Is first of all, we have to separate what is press and what's opinion all the time. You should not be able to do them on the same channel, right? Because these people are using their press passes to get access, and then they come out of those press conferences and things like that, and all they give you is opinion. That has to end, right? A press pass gives you specific access to events, what's going on in the world, and we do that on purpose so that you know you're getting a news source. But they go to these press conferences, they go to, they get special access to riots and protests and things like that, and then they come out specifically with an agenda of what story they're going to tell you. So step one is get rid of, separate it. Say you're not allowed to call yourself a news organization. It's false advertising, right? You're not allowed to do news and entertainment at the same time. That's simple. Step two, if you're going to be on a website, if you're going to be on social media and you want to be able to speak freely without being banned, it's pretty simple. You should have to do what you have to do in Parler. If you want to be a verified person on Parler, you have to send them your license, a photo ID. And what they have, they'll take that photo ID, stick it in their database, and then what it does is it, if you land up getting banned for saying something really jacked up, hateful, true violation of terms of service, you can't just go create another account, right? So you're a verified person. This is truly my account, and so then I'm responsible for what I say, right? Any other account I want to make after that would have to be a fake account, right? And that's really the ticket, right? Is that when you speak on the internet, you should have to speak with your own voice, right? So we should create, whether it's a public, they call it PKI, but a certificate online that's distributed just to you. You should have to attach that to whenever you speak online, whenever you do, not purchases and things like that, but anytime you're going to type something out or video say it, you should have to say, this is who I am, right? Now, is that a problem? Yes. Like, I'm retiring from the military. I don't get to speak, right? For 20 years, I haven't been allowed to speak. And on a lot of things, I'm not allowed to speak right now, right? So I have to be careful because, it always needs to be clear that I don't speak for my country. I don't speak for my military, right? For the military I work for. I speak for me, Kevin, right? And that's important. That matters, right? But once you have that, then you can apply the First Amendment as it stands today to everybody. To Sean Hannity, Ben Shapiro, Rachel Maddow, whoever you want, and to me and to you, right? And then if I say something that's truly, the internet equivalent of inciting a riot or yelling fire in a crowded movie theater, then my speech can be infringed upon. And that's easy, right? So you have the 3 steps, right? Is like make the First Amendment the same thing for all of us. Make it so when you speak online, you're speaking from your voice, right? And then the third one, I forget what the third one was. It was the first thing I said. Anyway, the point is you have those things in place, and then anytime you talk on the internet, it's like we were talking in person. I think that's the way it should be. Oh, separating the press from the entertainment. There has to be. You have freedom of press in our country. You don't have freedom to entertain. Okay? They're 2 different things. One of them is constitutionally protected. The other one absolutely is not. All right, so that's my take on what to do about Parler crackdowns. Will it ever get passed? Absolutely not. Right? Not in the next 4 years, or the next 2 at least. The Democratic Party has used this fault in our system to win an election. Literally to win the last 2 elections, the 2018 and the 2020, and to some extent 2016. But they weren't, in 2016, when you would Google Hillary Clinton controversies, you would get, on one occasion, it was literally just her email server and things like that. But then it was, on another occasion, it literally directed me to what Trump did controversially. Like, Google is if I wanted to figure out where the closest Texas Roadhouse is, it knows. But it can't somehow tell me every Hillary Clinton controversy. It doesn't know what those words mean. You're full of shit, Google. We know that you know better. So when they set it up to not show you the Whitewater or Jennifer Flowers, where she basically said that Jennifer Flowers was a liar and that she wanted it or whatever. I forget exactly what she said. Like, just covering all that up. The same thing they did with Hunter Biden. They acted like it was an October surprise, the Hunter Biden laptop. That is absolutely false. Absolutely false. It came out last December. A whole December ago. A whole year they sat on it. The media did nothing with it. And then when the FBI did nothing with it and the media did nothing with it, then they gave it to Rudy Giuliani's legal team, and then they pushed it out, right? And without Parler, nobody would have known about Hunter Biden. And when they asked people after the election if they knew about Hunter Biden, they were like, "What?" And you asked them if they would have voted for him knowing about it. They all said no, right? Like, it's so important that we understand that the power that these internet companies have is so far beyond what the constitutional framers planned for, and our government has given that to them. Section 230 allowed them basically you can't sue them for the content on their websites. The reason why that is important is that if you can't sue them for the content that's on their websites, then why are they banning anybody? Why do they care what I say, or you say, or anybody says? If they cannot be sued, they cannot take a financial loss for what's said on their website, they shouldn't care at all. So then automatically, any ban is an agenda-driven ban. Anyone, right? And if that agenda is profit, I think most people in a capitalist economy would understand that. But when you're literally banning half the country from speaking, that's not capitalist. You're going to lose money. You're going to lose access. By the way, the days of Twitter never mattered to the American people. They say they have something like 500 million active people on Twitter. I don't know anybody who's on Twitter every day. I don't know anybody at all. It's a pointless app. I think a lot of people made accounts for it and then just never used it. It's an annoying app. All you hear from is celebrities and politicians, and you never hear from regular people, which is why when I approached Parler and I was like, I'm going to get on here, I know it's just like Twitter, but I follow everybody who says anything on me because I want everybody to have a voice. I want everybody to be able to talk, and I want everybody to feel heard. That matters in a democracy, is that feeling that you're heard. It's so integral to what we do. And so that was my take on Parler, on the bans. The bans are bullshit. They're not under risk of losing any money, and that's the protection they've been provided above every other company in the world, right? A Burger King can be sued for what you do or say inside of it. Your children being exposed to things that you do or say inside of it. Adults being offended by anybody can be sued for almost anything in our country. But you can't sue Google and Facebook and Amazon and all these social media sites for what you say on their websites, right? So they have no excuse to ban anybody ever. Taking out the emotion about whether or not they should ban Trump or whether or not they should ban Pelosi or whoever, they have no excuse to ban anybody. Now, the Democrats brought them before Congress and literally said, you guys are a publisher. And they said, we're not a publisher. We don't publish anything. We provide a forum for people to talk, to discuss, right? And why does that matter, right? Well, a publisher decides what's said. They went before Congress and said they're not publishers. Well, if you're halting certain voices and you're not halting other voices, then you're a publisher now. You've become one. And that matters because if you're a publisher, you no longer fall under social media Section 230, and they should be sued. Anybody who gets banned by them should be sued. And it should sue them. So anyway, that's my take on the whole Parler thing. Whoever's in watching, I really appreciate it. If you guys want to hit me up in chat and ask me to talk about something specific, I'll be happy to do it. I know I got 2 people in here. Let's check out this article. Let me make sure you guys can see what I'm seeing. Okay, cool. What is about whataboutism and political hypocrisy? No, I don't want to check that one out. Abe Lincoln's warning. This is going to be somebody's take on what Abe Lincoln said. I'm kind of interested to see. He addressed condemning a series of vigilante attacks. So he's basically saying Abe Lincoln said that this is bad, right? That mob rule is bad. Lincoln's warning about the mob's threat to the nation is suddenly and unfortunately relevant again. Suddenly? Suddenly. It's suddenly relevant again. Oh, let's discuss the last year of our lives where the mob ran our nation, where they took over highways in Seattle, when they took over cities in Portland and Seattle, when they ransacked the country, destroyed thousands of small businesses and large businesses. Now let's discuss, really quick what that meant, all right, compared to the Capitol. Okay, so there's a grandma in Baltimore. I'm just making up a person. She's 70 years old. There's no supermarkets in her neighborhood because it's a violent place. There's violent portions of Baltimore. There's no supermarkets. Maybe people shoplift too much because they're hungry. Whatever their reason for shoplifting, maybe they vandalize the store. Maybe their employees steal from them. Whatever, right? I'm just making up an imaginary portion of Baltimore. Now, so the supermarkets don't move in. But Target decides to take a risk. Target comes in and says, you know what, we'll build a Target. Or Walmart says, we'll build a neighborhood market. Serve this underserved area, right? Now, Grandma has a small Chinese fruit and veg down the street from her house that she's used forever, but it only gives her so much access, right? She can't cook her favorite meals. She can't stay healthy. Meals on Wheels or whoever the local support service, charity, kind of stops by and gives her food every now and again. But when she goes into that fruit and veg, there's always seven thugs standing outside the store. And she gets nervous about it. She doesn't want to go in there. And she doesn't really know how the internet works, so she can't really download, online, purchase online for delivery to her door. And she just struggles with it. It's a constant nagging portion of her life. But, on the first of the month, she gets her Social Security check, and the new Target just opened up, the new Walmart neighborhood market just opened up. And she doesn't know much about it, but she knows it's there because they talked about it in church on Sunday. And she takes a taxi over the new Target. And she goes over there. And she walks in, and the gentleman greets her, and they give her a rolling cart so she doesn't have to use her walker. And they say, "Don't worry, ma'am. We'll keep an eye on that for you. We'll just use the cart to your content." And she goes shopping there, and she rolls around the store, and she buys things she never could buy. She never had access to. She finally gets a new shower curtain. It has been driving her nuts, and it's been old and dry rotted, and she just gets that new shield, the clear plastic shield that she can't get at her local store. And she gets that thing, and she goes to the pharmacy, and she's like, oh my God, they have a pharmacy here. And she gets so excited because now she has a safe place to pick up her prescriptions. And, it becomes a part of her life. Every 1st and 15th or every Monday morning she goes there and she sees Fred and Bertha and Tom. And they're always there, and they're always friendly, and they decide that they're all going to meet there all the time, and check in on each other. And they're all going to pick up their scripts Monday morning at 8 a.m. or whatever. And they go in there and they do that, and they hang out, and they spend hours. And then they decide they're going to get a coffee, or they're going to get a pizza, or something. And they're going to spend that time together because they haven't talked to anybody in so long because their streets are so dangerous and they don't have access to stores, and all they can really do is go to church. But now the churches are shut down, or their church really, they don't really talk to anybody at church because they don't really know the congregants anymore, but they've met each other. And then George Floyd dies in a completely other state, and that grandma's Target's taken away. Fred's Walmart is gone. All their contact with humanity, their ability to purchase necessary goods for their safety and health and well-being, their ability to pick up pharmaceutical prescriptions, it's all gone because a meth head died in another state. That's mob rule. You don't get to eat. You don't get to get your medication. You don't get medical care. You don't get social interaction because the mob said you can't. That's what mob rule is. Going into the Capitol building, they could do anything inside of the Capitol building. 99.99999% of Americans, more than that, will never set foot in the Capitol building. It doesn't matter. It's just a building. The White House has burned down in the past. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect anybody else's daily life. Anybody at all. That's not mob rule. Mob rule is what they did in Seattle. Mob rule is Philly, is hundreds of cities around the country where you couldn't drive down a street without having an armed brigade of jackasses and hipsters beating on your window and calling you a racist just because you had the wrong skin color. Mob rule is shooting Connor Hinnant in the head while he played on his own street because he was a white kid. That's mob rule. Okay? So, suddenly, the nation is suddenly and unfortunately relevant again. It's not sudden. This is old. Go to Andy Ngo. Andy, ANDYNGO. Since 2015, he's been reporting on Antifa's activities in this country, and nobody's done shit about it. Nothing. It wasn't until George Floyd that even Trump did something about it, and that drove me nuts. Because these people have been antagonizing a whole corner of our nation for half a decade, and everybody just woke up to them. All right, that's enough, because that makes me fucking angry. All right. Let's see. In show of monopolistic force, big tech destroys Parler. I tend to agree with that statement. In the last 3 months, tech giants have censored political speech and journalism to manipulate U.S. politics, while liberals in virtual unanimity have cheered. This is the part that scares me, right? Now, anybody who's a Star Wars fan knows that, you know, WAPO's, let's do this. Washington Post's headline is "Democracy Dies in the Darkness." That's their motto. Democracy dies in the darkness. False. And go watch Star Wars. Go watch it. Padme says it. Democracy dies with thunderous applause. That's how it dies, right? Like, our republic will fall if the majority rules all the time. That is the nature of our government, is to protect from majority rule, right? So when you look at places like, we have California, New York, right? California is 55 electoral votes of 270. So they are literally a quarter of what you need to get elected to the presidency. A quarter. One state has that much authority over our nation. Now, progressives, when you talk about taxes, they want a progressive tax system, that the more money you make, the more you get taxed, so everybody's equal. And that sounds good. Why don't we have a progressive electoral college? The more people you have, the less value each of those people has in terms of the electoral college. So it would be balanced. So Idaho would matter as much as California. I thought you were progressive. I thought you were down with that. Right? I thought that's what you believed in. That's the difference, right? Is they're progressive when it benefits them. They believe in freedom when it benefits them. You don't want majority rule in everything. That's why we have states. And that's why states have individual representatives and individual districts, where it doesn't matter that Philly exists in Pennsylvania, because all the rural areas have representatives as well in the state legislature, right? Everybody should get represented in a true democratic republic such as ours, right? A constitutional democratic republic. But instead, everybody's cheering, shutting down the voices of Americans. Just shutting them down. And I can't. They laugh, like, we make memes, and I'm good. I love memes. I'm down. But it's really a problem when you think about, if you cheer this, what it means is you don't even understand our Constitution, or you don't understand individual liberty or rights or freedoms. And then like, you know, the dickhead in me goes, and you get to vote? Like, you get a say in what happens in our country? To me, that's fucking mind-blowing. Alright, but this guy's right. He says the creators of Silicon Valley have censorship for years, heard the same refrain. Tech platforms like Facebook, Google, Twitter are private corporations and can host or ban whoever they want. If you don't like what they're doing, the solution is not to complain or regulate them. Instead, go create your own social media platform that operates the way you think it should. Which they did. They created Parler, they created Rumble. I particularly don't like Rumble, mostly because when I post my video on there, it's like, do you want to give us full authority over your video? Full authority besides YouTube? Or do you want it to be your own video? Well, of course I want it to be my own video. Like, why would I create all this content and make it yours forever? Imagine Joe Rogan. He's got 1,300 podcasts, and he gets this $100 million offer from Spotify, and he can't take it because his podcasts would forever be left behind with YouTube. Do you see how ridiculous that is? Like they're not offering them $100 million. They might offer them like 10, 12, because people can go back and listen to his podcast forever on Spotify now. They can go through thousands and thousands of hours of content that he's created with billions of views probably, and through all the platforms he's on. And imagine YouTube had the full authority. First of all, I wouldn't have ever listened to Joe Rogan if he was just on Apple. If he was just able to put it on one platform. That's the mistake with Parler. Is, yeah, it does give you the option, which I do like. But it's frustrating because you don't get plays if you don't do their Rumble thing. And I don't really even know how that works. I feel like it's overly... It's this kind of like obtuse way. They should have just done YouTube, but better. All right, let's get out of this one. What else is going on? GOP must step up to stop the violence. Trump won't. This is by A.B. Stoddard from Real Clear Politics. A historic assault on the U.S. government incited by an American president has left 5 people dead and armed protests planned again in our nation's capital and all across the country in the coming week. If Republicans don't begin immediately to try and prevent any further violence, they will own it. The GOP can't stop this. That's my take. The GOP has no authority over our country just as much as the Democratic Party has no authority over our country. Not anymore. They gave it away. Donald Trump got 75 million votes, and most of them were people who, and a huge portion of them were people who've never voted in their lives. I can tell you that because I know at least 7 people in my family who voted this year that never vote. Like, people believed that Donald Trump was actually trying to stop the GOP and the Democratic Party from ruining our country and selling us down the river. Okay? Now you might ask, why do people believe that? Well, it's actually pretty simple. I'll put it on the big screen for you. So for 40 years, wages in our country stagnated. They didn't go up. There's no reason for it. We grew wealthier and wealthier and wealthier every year. Wages stayed stagnant. Both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party have done nothing about illegal immigration. Now you might say, what does illegal immigration have to do with anything? Right? Well, it's in terms of getting wages to grow up, supply and demand, right? So they say, well, most immigrants do jobs, citizens wouldn't want. False. That might be true in New York City. That might be true in LA. Probably true in plenty of cities around the country. But the truth of the matter is that it doesn't matter. Supply and demand is all that matters in terms of getting wages to rise. Right? So if you have 500,000 people crossing the border every year, and let's look at Tucson, Arizona. They have a huge resort community there. Right? When you go to the resorts, I know because I know people who have worked in them, and the rule is that they all share the same social security numbers. The system, they don't care. There's no E-Verify. There's no system in place to stop them. So the groundskeepers, housekeepers, everybody, a lot of them are going to be illegal immigrants. Do I fault them for that? Absolutely not. The rule is that you incur risk. Right? If you're going to break the law to make your life better, you're incurring a risk and you're aware of that. And if the risk isn't high enough to stop you from doing it, then the law isn't effective. Right? Because if the risk was that when you crossed our border you got shot, people would stop coming. Right? But we're not that country. Many countries in the world, that's the law. Right? You start coming across the border and they say stop, and you don't stop, you're going to get shot. That's the way it is. In Italy, if the police officer tries to pull you over, they call it getting lollipopped, because they have the giant stop sign with a light on it. It looks like a lollipop. They're allowed to shoot you. They have machine guns. They're allowed to shoot your fucking car up just for not stopping. So, for example, illegal immigration is just an example. But you have to remember that wages didn't rise for American people. Obama and Biden told America that manufacturing would never come back to our country, while also pushing unionization, fighting for collective bargaining, fighting for a lot of things that people were getting represented by unions that weren't representing them, right? People were paying hundreds and thousands of dollars in dues over the course of their careers, and they weren't getting taken care of by their unions because they didn't have enough experience, because the unions never fired anybody. So no matter how bad they were, no matter how little work they did, the union would stand up for them and make sure they didn't get fired. So many people worked for unions in our country, didn't feel represented by them. Yes, they would go on strike and they would try to get higher wages, because who's not going to try to get higher wages? But people weren't being represented by the unions. Obama said we're never going to manufacture again in our country. He also stood against fracking and oil. Now, regardless of how you feel about the environment, the truth of the matter is we are no closer today from being fossil fuel free than we were 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Why? Because the technology is not there. Now, are we working on the technology? Absolutely. Plenty of people are. But as it turns out, to make all the machines, to make your solar panels, to make your wind farms, to make the wires, the cables, all that stuff, it's a lot of energy, and it takes fuel. So even when you buy a solar panel, you're still buying fossil fuel usage. So he's against fracking. He's against these jobs that people had. Clean coal. Like, first of all, you want to talk about carbon capture? Carbon capture at the point of production, right? So you burn coal, make it the law that people have to collect the fucking carbon, capture the carbon before it gets out into the environment. Which, by the way, pretty sure is a law. But the thing is he stood against all this. They all stood against it. The Republicans didn't do shit either, right? They took over the House in, 2010. They took over the House. The Tea Party took over. And one of their first acts was to cut spending on military people's education. Like, they couldn't wait. They didn't cut funding from all the other things that's wasteful. They wanted to cut it from people, active duty military, saying you can't get this housing money that's attached to your GI Bill. They're the same. They're the same thing. The Republican Party and the Democratic Party are the same exact fucking thing. There's no difference. Do you know anything about Trump's new executive order regarding China? Well, let's see. Whitehouse.gov. Should be under executive actions. Issues. No. Let's see. News. Presidential actions. Alright, so January 12th, executive order on promoting small modular proclamation on honoring memorandum, executive order providing order of succession within the Environmental Protection Agency. Which specific one are we talking about, Baron? I'm going to guess it's this one. This is from January 5th. Executive order addressing the threat posed by applications and other software developed or controlled by Chinese companies. Let's read it. So, this is standard. Right at the beginning, it's always going to tell you where the authority comes from. So, by the Constitution, the laws of the United States of America, including International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the IEEPA, the National Emergencies Act, and Section 301 of Title III United States Code. I, Trump, find additional steps must be taken to deal with the national emergency with respect to the information and communications technology and services supply chain declared in Executive Order 1813873. Let me try to select that so I can look that one up later. Copy. Let's do this. All right. Specifically, the pace and pervasiveness of the spread in the United States of certain connected mobile and desktop applications and other software developed and controlled by persons in China, Hong Kong, and Macau to continue to threaten national security, foreign policy, and the economy of the United States. At this time, action must be taken to address the threat posed by these Chinese connected software applications. You're saying that's not the one you're talking about, but I'm going to look into this one anyway while we're here. So, let's see. My take on the software applications from China is that our election apparatus, our social media apparatus, pretty much anything we do should be free, absolutely 100% free of Chinese incursion or investment. The reason why I say that is, like, people would say that's unfair, this and that and the other thing. Call it a sanction, call it what you will, right? It's a bad idea to let any nation get that kind of foothold in our country. So, for example, let me see if I can find it before I dig deeper on this. How much of... So, in previous videos, I've talked about BlackRock, right? So, when you come here, what does BlackRock own? I know I'm using Bing. It's a new computer. No, that's not a good one. Don't trust Wikipedia. And if you want me to talk about that, I will. Send it to me in Messenger. All right. Okay. Actually, Barron's absolutely right. So, this is a huge problem, and I was literally just going over to it, right? So, executive order on addressing the threat from securities investments that finance communist Chinese military companies, right? So, securities investments that finance Chinese military companies. So, one of the biggest problems in our nation right now in terms of dealing with China is that we pay interest payments to China every month on the money we've borrowed from them, and then they take that money and more and buy back into our own companies, right? So, if you want to come... Oh, shoot. Okay. So this is who owns BlackRock. You got the Vanguard Group. Now, Vanguard's interesting. Vanguard is a mutual fund, investment securities fund as well, right? But the way that their company, the Vanguard Group, is laid out is that who's in charge of them is their funds. So there's nobody like... I think there's a board, but beyond that, like, they're controlled by their individual funds. Now, if you go and you look at how many funds Vanguard has, so Vanguard has so many funds, it's absurd. Like, it just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes, right? Now, you can pretty well be assured that China has bought into all of these, and I could dig into it one day, but honestly, I've seen enough to know, right? So, who owns BlackRock? Well, Vanguard, right? Vanguard, owned by China, largely. Not largely, but they don't own a majority share. They don't own over 50%, but they own enough to be able to dumpster those funds if they wanted to. Also, BlackRock invests in BlackRock, obviously, because you need to own a portion of what you own in order to maintain control of it. Capital World Investors. Let's see. Bank of America, Temasek, Wellington, JP Morgan, and Chase. So what happens in the finance world is they all invest in each other and China invests into them, right? But then, it's actually another good link too, where they actually show you, literally this article, BlackRock, the company that owns the world, right? So they own everything, right? Now, let's look at Joe Biden's donors. I don't know why I can't type today. Top donors to Biden's campaign. Top industries. So Donald Sussman, $9 million, right? Paloma Partners, investment and security. James Simons, Euclidean Capital, another investment security fund. Deborah Simon, her father was a co-founder. Okay. George Marcuson Mill Cap Company. Real estate magnate, Sequoia Capital. Vice President of Software Engineering. Baupost Group. Really don't know. So I'm going to guess this is another one of those investment companies. Greylock Partners, again, Capital. InterSystems Corporation. So when you actually tally it all up, it's something like 147 million of Joe Biden's numbers of money came. Look, fucking Bloomberg, ugh, $94 million. And who's Bloomberg? Well, we know. Donor demographics, industries, right? Democratic liberal, he got $375 million from them, $118 million from miscellaneous finance, and $78 million from securities investments. Like, all of his money came from China. Okay? Like, via BlackRock, Vanguard, Capital Investment Groups, right? Like, so let me just do this for you real quick, right? I showed you guys Donald Sussman, right? What does Donald Sussman own? 9 million. Number one investor, right? Let's see. Here, this is easier. Donald Sussman, China Investment Corp. So he owns Paloma Partners, but he also owns something called China Investment Corporation, something like that. Hold on, I gotta find it. Alright. So, look. This is the China Investment Corporation. Right? He owns it. Who owns the China Investment Corporation? I know this is kind of boring, but I think it's important for people to know that I do my research myself, right? Like, I don't, like, let other people tell me. Wikipedia. Alright, so it's China's Investment Corporation is a sovereign wealth fund of the People's Republic of China. It invests in long-term basis in public and private assets around the world to diversify the country's foreign exchange holdings. Portfolio. God damn it, I can't find it. Let's see. What does... Sorry, sometimes Google's like, Google. Oh, you know what? I'm not on Google, that's why. Bing is garbage, but I don't like it. But I don't like Google either. What does Donald Sussman own? And I haven't downloaded DuckDuckGo yet. So he's an American asset manager and philanthropist who's founder, chief investment officer of the Paloma Funds, right? So I'll explain to you why Wikipedia is kind of not trustworthy at some point, but I really want to get through this really quick. So he gives huge amounts of money to democratic organizations all the time, right? ProPublica. Let's see. Damn it. Get out of here. No. I think it was called China Investment Corp, but to be honest, it might have been called something else. China Investment Fund? I have it in my notes. I feel so stupid now. Give me a second. I do remember this executive order and thinking, oh my god, because that's what got me looking at investment in securities and realizing that, okay, so Catholic Capital. I have it here. Just 1 second. Oh, it's New China Capital Management. Who owns New China Capital Management? Right. New China Capital Management is actually ran by Donald Sussman. Or owned by, was founded by him or whatever. God damn it. Let's do this. Just put the two names together. There you go. Alright, so this is from fintel.io. Alright, name of reporting persons, S. Donald Sussman. Right? Sorry, that took a while to get there. This is actually their SEC filing, right? So he runs, or is in charge of New China Capital Management. So, I don't know why it's doing this. So then you have name of reporting persons, Cathay Master Group, Cathay Capital Holdings. Now, when you go through Asia, China, anywhere you go, they're going to have the name word Cathay everywhere. Don't know why. Cathay Pacific, Cathay this, Cathay that. Citizen or place of organization, the Cayman Islands. Like, but when you look at Cathay Capital Holdings, who owns Cathay Capital Holdings? It's a private equity fund operated by New China Capital Management and has approximately $193.6 million in assets. Right? I point at that to say Donald Sussman, the number one donor to Joe Biden, has a vested interest in China doing well. All right? He has a huge stake in it. Okay? Like, you cannot pretend that these people are giving him donating millions and millions and millions of dollars to the tune of $147 million to Joe Biden, and it's not on behalf of China to some extent. Okay? You could pretend that, oh yeah, they just really love Joe Biden. Okay, well, let's just talk about when he won his first primary in South Carolina. He had a total of $11 million in donations to that point. They don't love Joe Biden. They had given $100 million or more to Bernie Sanders, to Buttigieg, to all these fucking people. They wanted anybody but him, right? But when it came time to choose the guy, they chose Biden, knowing that he was off his fucking rocker, all this shit, right? And a lot of those donations came out after Hunter Biden. After the whole Hunter Biden escapade, those donations came through. Why? Because they're like, oh, he's in bed with China. Great, this is good for us. This is business, right? Like, they were happy. So, now, all of these people, but let's just do this, right? Let's just go back to BlackRock, right? What does BlackRock own? Let's go to Google again. I should just fucking... List of top BlackRock portfolio companies. Let's see. No, that's not it. That's annoying. Top 13F holdings, maybe? All right. Top buys. NVIDIA, Zoom, Berkshire Hathaway, iShares, iBox, Microsoft, ExxonMobil, the biggest companies in the world, Apple, Microsoft. This is their largest holdings. Let's look at this. All right. You want to know why they banned Trump from Twitter? Why they banned him from Facebook and all these things, and all at the same time? Because fucking China told them to. All right? That's my guess. And I don't know why I can't see the whole holdings, right? That's my guess, all right? I don't know it for a fact, but I would say is China's invested in all these companies, right? And what the hell is going on here? Sort by market value. All right. So their top holdings: Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Google. There's two versions of Google shares. There's the Class A shares, which is Google with the L, and then the other one is the Class C shares. So the one with the L, you get voting power when you buy those shares. That's why they're worth more, right? And then the other one. When you tally this, there isn't one of these companies that are below 5% owned by China, by BlackRock, right? Like, that's voting power, okay? All they have to do is dump $123 billion of Apple stock tomorrow because Apple didn't listen. And their billions of dollars disappears because they're going to sell off. And then everybody else is going to sell off right behind them because they're going to think something changed. Because algorithms run the stock exchange. So the algorithm's going to see this huge sell-off, and they're going to see a devaluation. And so all of these individual investors down the stream, right, are automatically going to sell off. The computer's going to do it for them, right? It gets worse than that. Let's look at where BlackRock came from. So all of them will lose billions. Zuckerberg, all of them, if China decides to fuck around. And they have plenty more cash. They just have tons of cash sitting around, right? That they could lose money and they still wouldn't care, right? But where did how was BlackRock founded? So you have, let's go to their official website, right? Right, BlackRock.com. Let's go About Us. Come on. About Us. What we do, what we offer, where we stand. No. The history of BlackRock. Usually an About Us page will tell you about where they came from. But let's try Google again. I feel like that webpage changed though. History, BlackRock. All right. Started in 1988. In 1988, with 8 people in a single role who shared a determination to put clients' needs and interests first. Sounds good, right? Our founders believed they could manage assets in a way that was way better for their clients by utilizing their passion for understanding and managing risk. This is the way the firm continues to be managed today. So they wanted to understand and manage risk. Okay, nobody was trying to do that back then. But 8 people in 1988. In 1999, recognizing the opportunity to bring transparency, scale, and innovation to risk management for the broader industry, BlackRock begins to sell its proprietary technology, Aladdin. This technology, integral to who we are as a firm, is embedded in everything we do, thus differentiating us as an investment in risk management. So 8 people developed Aladdin. Aladdin is an algorithm. The same algorithm that's, an original of the algorithm that is used to buy and sell shares all across the world today. 8 people, 8 fund managers, figured out an algorithm. They went and learned how to code. And made an algorithm that broke the stock exchange to where they would win all the time. Or did somebody else make it for them? Well, let's look. 1999, BlackRock makes its initial public offering on the stock exchange for $14 a share. By the end of the year, that firm had $165 billion in assets. 2000, founds BlackRock Solutions with Aladdin as the basis for the business. This marked the beginning of BlackRock's role as a technology provider. You see, they got a hold of this algorithm. It worked so well that they were able to sell $165 billion in investment. And then they started selling that algorithm to everybody else. Then BlackRock acquires Merrill Lynch. Went from being nobody in 1988 to by 2006, they bought Merrill Lynch Investment Management. In 2008, amidst the financial crisis, the head of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York asks BlackRock to analyze Bear Stearns mortgage-backed securities. Okay? So in 1988, they're nobody. 1999, they have their hands on the magic algorithm that also created the financial crisis. And then amidst the financial crisis, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York asked BlackRock to analyze Bear Stearns mortgage-backed securities and assets to determine their value. So then the government put them in charge of the financial crisis. They went from being nobody, being 8 people in a room, to being in charge of a global economic crisis, right? To determining value. BlackRock acquires Barclays Global Investors, become the world's largest asset manager with employees in 24 countries. So 24 countries. So once you're outside of America, you're no longer invested in America. You might be invested in America in terms of money. You might be. But you no longer see yourself as an American in terms of financial strategy. You just go with who's going to win. Okay? Launches iShares Core to provide investors with broad stock and bond market exposure at the foundation of their portfolios. And then let's look at what they're valued at today. Google again. How annoying is it that I can figure it out on the goddamn internet, but the media doesn't talk about it? And we'll get there. So, how many assets does BlackRock have? Manage. BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager with $7.81 trillion in assets under management as of end of Q4 2020. $7.81 trillion. Okay? Now, I think that's a lowball estimate. I've seen as high as $14 trillion at sometimes. Now, let's go GDP of nations. So, after the United States and China, BlackRock is the largest financial, like GDP, right? They have 7.8 trillion. 20.4, they create 20.4 trillion in America does. We have 14 trillion over here in China, and they have 7.8 trillion. China is one of the biggest economies. BlackRock is the 3rd biggest economy in the world. I'm not making it up, all right? When I say that China's in every fucking thing, it's right there. It's not rocket surgery, right? All you have to do is look at what's out there and then compare it to what people's motivations are, right? If you figure out what somebody's motivation is, then you can figure it out. It's not hard. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Google. Imagine them as your coworkers. Imagine you're a coworker in an office with Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Google, Johnson & Johnson, Alibaba, Vanguard, by the way. They own Vanguard. So BlackRock owns BlackRock. Vanguard owns BlackRock. BlackRock owns Vanguard. Finance, NVIDIA, healthcare, finance, consumer staples. Like, they own every fucking thing. All right? And imagine we're all coworkers, right? I'm BRK, right? I'm Berkshire, whatever the fuck. I think that's Berkshire Hathaway. Yeah, Class B stocks, right? Every single one of these guys knows what their boss wants, including me. Their boss doesn't have to call them up and tell them. Their boss doesn't have to be like, hey. In fact, the best employees are going to get promoted. China's going to buy more of their stocks and their value will go up, right? The worst employees will get demoted, right? They'll get less buy-in, right? The people who do what the boss wants the best are going to get so much support that they're going to get promoted. They're going to get more shares bought by China, which is going to raise their valuation, which is going to make, whoever the current CEO of Apple's stock go up. Everybody that works in there, the CFO, everybody, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, everybody that works for them will get a better job when it's done, and the company's share price will go up, which means the owners of those companies will go up. And if they piss them off, they can sell out of them and dumpster them. And I've looked it up. It's between 5 and 7% they own of every social media organization. 5 and 7% is no small amount. You getting? Is it Baron still in here? Are you in here, or is it somebody else? Please feel free to chat, guys. I'm happy to talk about whatever. And this all goes back to the executive order that Baron asked me about, right? So, when I say China owns everything, I just proved it, right? And controls everything, I just proved it, right? So it's very important that Donald Trump puts out this executive order on November 12th. And you'll remember, he hasn't stopped working since the election was over, by the way. And he was working before it, but he definitely hasn't stopped, which is something we're not used to as Americans. We fucking aren't used to politicians working for a living. So he passes this key to the development of PRCs. So you have to remember, in a communist government, all the companies in the country work for the government. All of them, right? There's no secret sauce to it. It's literally they all work for them, right? So, and the government can tell them what to do, what not to do, right? So every dollar that goes into China lands at the feet of the Chinese government, and they can take as much as they want, and they can let them make as much as they want, and then take that, and they can all use that to fund their military, right? Which is the importance of it, right? Is we, as a nation, we have to stop that. The only way to stop that is through legal action. The problem is our politicians have been bought. Our politicians all have been bought. I showed you how Joe Biden took $147 million pretty much directly from China. It was like 1 degree of separation, right? But let's look at this, right? They said Dominion has no ties to China whatsoever, right? Dominion voting systems. Who owns Dominion voting systems? And look, so this is how Microsoft and Google play along, right? It's the first thing they're going to give you. I didn't ask you, oh, it has no foreign owners, right? I didn't ask you, Biden's brother-in-law doesn't own. I didn't ask you that. Why is Google giving me a question I didn't ask? You know as well as I do, Google knows how to answer this question. Bing knows how to answer this question, right? So why aren't they answering the question? Why are they giving me something else, right? So, election system and software. You can't even get the answer from them. Okay. What's up, Baron? How you been, man? Let's see if Google. Inside the $1 billion war against right-wing conspiracists. $1 billion war. You know, when you're telling the truth, it doesn't cost $1 billion to tell the truth. Okay. So this is Wikipedia, and if you want me to get into why you can't trust Wikipedia, I will. But owner, management, Staple Street Capital, right? So when did... stupid. I just need to download DuckDuckGo already. So DuckDuckGo is pretty cool because they don't collect any of your shit. But add DuckDuckGo to Edge. Cool. Let's do that. So where was I going? Oh yeah, Dominion's owned by fucking China, right? So they say, they right out the gate, they're going to tell you it's not, it's fake, right? Whatever. When did Michael Jackson die? Okay. Who owns Dominion Voting Systems? It's owned by Staple Street Capital. Staple Street Capital, SEC filings. This is straight from the SEC, okay? Let's see. So, this is the company, State Incorporated, Delaware, right? So, let's see. Related. I don't know if they're in date order. So this is 2014, 12, 2019. So, date of Edgar filing update 2020-10/08, October 8th. This is the SEC website. You guys tracking? Okay. The Security Exchange Commission has not necessarily reviewed the information in this filing and has not determined if it is accurate and complete. This is from them, Staple Street Capital, filing agent. So they've told the SEC this. Where is it? So here, sales compensation. Recipient, UBS Securities LLC. All right. SEC's website, UBS Securities LLC. Total offering amount, $400 million. October 8th, 2020. You'll note, if we go back to the previous page, this is the related, this is their SEC filings. This is all of them. All of them. Before that, before these, nothing. Right? Now, Staple Street Capital has been around for a long time. Oh, yeah, you're going back to Kunsan? Yeah, Kunsan was alright, I guess. I didn't really like it, but I liked it better than Osan. Alright, so you've got Staple Street Capital gets $400 million from UBS Securities. Who is UBS Securities? It's a joint stock company pursuant to Swiss laws. Its shares are listed on the Swiss Exchange and the New York Stock Exchange. It's an investment banking division of UBS, providing investment and broker-dealer services worldwide. The company provides services such as equity, sales, and trading. So, a month before the election, UBS Securities, a Swiss bank, for all intents and purposes, pays Staple Street Capital $400 million. Prior to that, I think the last time they got investment was back in 2013. They just, out of nowhere, here's $400 million. Who owns UBS Securities? UBS Securities Company Ltd. is a Chinese investment bank and brokerage firm and has been a subsidiary of the multinational financial group UBS since 2018. Founded 2006, headquarters Beijing, China, areas served. So UBS is a lot like Merrill Lynch or any of them. They have a lot of different names, right? It's a Swiss bank, right? But it is owned by UBS LLC to the tune of... Gotta figure it out. It's here. I'll find it. Alright, UBS Group AG. Damn it. So you excited to go there? When do you head out? Who else? Let's add the LLC to it. Statement of financial condition. So UBS is considered the most secretive of all the banks in Switzerland, right? So Switzerland is the most secretive banks in the world, probably next to the Caymans, but they're notorious for it, right? And UBS is the most secretive of all of them, right? So let's see. This is a translation of foreign currencies. No. Bloomberg won't tell me company profile, maybe. Let's try this one. 1.96 billion in assets. So even these guys are fucking small compared to BlackRock. Oh, dang it. Sitting in Seattle and in quarantine as we speak. I tested positive for the vid before my AMC. God damn, that shit. Oh, it's worst. It's like I don't know. Seattle's not bad, but you're in quarantine. You're not allowed to go anywhere, right? Let's see the SEC registration for it. Oh, look, Delaware again. Huh. Delaware comes up a lot. I think there's some kind of deal with their taxes or whatever. Company name, stock symbols. You know. Anyway, so I already did this research. I'm just trying to replicate it for you guys. Let me just pull it up. But let's see. I have it here. All right, so UBS Securities and Beijing. I think I spelled this weird. Guoxiang. So, let's say UBS Securities Limited Company. No, they're all the same fucking thing, but. Oh, already tied it to UBS Group and Beijing Guoxiang. But anyway, so there's three. Here's the deal. It goes like this. It goes Guangdong Com Group, 14% of UBS Securities. Beijing Guoxiang, China Guodayan, and Kofco Group, which is a Chinese shipping group. All of them own fucking UBS Securities. Anyway, I could do that all fucking day. The thing is it goes like this. Who owns CNN? All right, well, CNN is going to tell us that CNN is owned by Warner Media, right? Headquarters is owned by CNN Worldwide and a unit of Warner Media News and Sports of AT&T's Warner Media, right? So AT&T owns Warner Media owns CNN. Who is AT&T's largest shareholder? Let's see. I have a chart. So, oh, fuck, look. Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, right? Why does CNN say everything that China would love to hear? Why do they cover up things that China doesn't want people to hear? Because when you just follow the trail of breadcrumbs, it always leads back to BlackRock. And BlackRock's the company with the magical fucking algorithm that just popped up out of 8 financial managers' heads in 1999 and landed up making them the biggest company in the world. Have I made the case? Baron, tell me, have I made the case? Have I shown you enough? Oh, you're not. God damn it. I had the camera on the wrong fucking thing the whole time. Why didn't you tell me, Baron? That's so annoying. Alright. So I'm going to have to run through a lot of shit again. But basically, look. This is AT&T. Let me get back over here. AT&T. BlackRock. State Street Capital. Vanguard. Right? Not that one. GDP per country. This is the GDP of the U.S., China. Vanguard's worth more per year than Japan makes in its entirety. This is what BlackRock owns. Facebook, Google, right? Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Johnson & Johnson, Baba, Berkshire Hathaway, Vanguard, Nvidia, United Healthcare. Not sure who these are. MasterCard, Procter & Gamble, Home Depot, iShares Corp. Now you will notice that every single one of these companies, every single one of them benefited from the Chinese virus. Every single one of them. Apple, duh, more laptops sold. Microsoft, more Windows licenses sold. Zoom, Skype, Amazon. They shipped more shit this year than they ever have in their fucking lives. Facebook, how many more clicks did they get this year when people weren't at work and they were teleworking? Google, Johnson & Johnson. They make fucking medical devices. Alibaba, again, giant shipping company. Vanguard, stock exchange at an all-time high. Berkshire Hathaway. Nvidia. Nvidia is sold out of graphics cards worldwide. Sold out. Because everybody is working from home right now. And everybody needed a computer. So they dropped a new GPU and it sold out worldwide. United Healthcare, again. MasterCard. Have you done a lot of online purchases this year? I have. Procter & Gamble, again, healthcare. Home Depot, one of the only stores that was allowed to stay open this year. All year. Home Depot. You following? Is everybody tracking it? It's literally right there in front of our faces. Well, basically, let me go read it again. Let me open it up, actually, so you can see it, too. Sorry. I got sidetracked, man. There's so much to talk about. Let's go back to November. He's done a lot of moves against China in the last couple of years through executive orders, which really, 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 really ticked off a lot of people, especially in our own country, which is disgusting. December, like, this is a busy dude, man. It's November 12th, right? Let's try going 2 of these. Alright. So, we went over how he said it was basically dangerous. So, find that People's Republic of China is increasingly exploiting United States capital to resource and enable development and modernization of its military. I just walked you guys through how that worked. Intelligence and other security apparatuses, which continues to allow the PRC to directly threaten the United States homeland and United States forces overseas, including by developing and deploying weapons of mass destruction, advanced conventional weapons, and malicious cyber-enabled actions against the United States and its people. Key to the development of their military is the country's large, ostensibly private economy. Through the national strategy of military-civil fusion, the PRC increases the size of the country's military-industrial complex by compelling civilian Chinese companies to support its military and intelligence activities. So I discussed how, in a communist government, you can just make the companies do whatever they want. They all work for the government, right? At the end of the day. At the same time, those companies raised capital by selling securities to United States investors that trade on public exchanges both here and abroad. BlackRock, Vanguard, right? Lobbying United States index providers and funds to include these securities in market offerings and engaging in other acts to ensure access to the United States capital, right? Lobbying, right? That's why I went through Joe Biden's largest investor, right? I don't know if you saw this earlier because I had my screen jacked up and nobody told me. I wish I could just do I'll probably just set it up for a split screen so I'm a little bit larger on it. So up here, you're going to see Joe Biden's fundraiser list has more than 30 execs with Wall Street, blah, 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 right? That's China, all right? Like, Wall Street doesn't care who the president is. They made plenty of money under Trump. Don't get it twisted. They didn't care, all right? Somebody else wanted Wall Street to invest in Joe Biden. Billionaires backing Joe Biden. And then, of course, CNBC's job is to tell you how good it's going to be for the economy to have Biden in charge. God damn it, stupid Bing. Let's search Joe Biden fundraising. Open secrets. They're not always up to date, but let's see. Joe Biden winner. Campaign committee, total raised, that's $1 billion. Outside groups, $578 million. Combined, $1.6 billion. Total spent, $1.6 billion. Cash on hand, right? Source of funds, large contributions, small individual contributions, other. So, let's see. I want it by industry. Where's that? It's much easier to do. Sorry, guys. I screwed it up earlier. I just didn't have it on my screen. What's the point of doing all the research in front of you if I didn't have it on my screen? All right. Top contributors, federal election data. By industry. Okay, of course, the Democratic Liberal Party gave a lot of money. But here you got number 2 and number 3. Miscellaneous finance and securities investment. They have it tallied at $197 million. $197 million. The last number I saw was 147, right? So this executive order, he's discussing about how basically China uses these investment companies to fund their military, right? As the president, he doesn't really have the authority to go, they're donating to campaigns, but they're donating to campaigns, right? But he can prove that if the money goes to a Chinese company, the Chinese company benefits the military every time, because that's how communism works. So he orders these actions are prohibited. Beginning 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on January 11th, which was 2 days ago, any transaction in publicly traded securities or any securities that are derivative of or designed to provide investment exposure to such securities of any communist Chinese military company is as defined in 4A of this order by any United States person. So, let's see, beginning 2 days ago, okay, these actions are prohibited. So you're not allowed to fund anything that goes to China. Then, this is for the future. If the government deems that it funds the communist Chinese military company, then in the future, then 9:30 a.m., 60 days after, you have to be basically completely divested from them, right? You have to sell off their shares. So the executive order, okay, no, that's not new. Notwithstanding subsection A2 of this section, that's the one about 60 days after. Notwithstanding subject to purchases for value or sales made on or before 11/59, solely to divest in whole or part of from securities that ain't. So you're allowed to. This is just giving you permission to sell off before November 11th, 2021. You're allowed to divest. You're not allowed to buy back in. The person. Again, allowed to sell off, not allowed to buy in. The prohibitions in subsection of this section apply except to the extent provided by statutes and regulations, orders, directives, or licenses that may be issued pursuant to this order. So the important thing about an executive order is that Trump lays these things out. So say Biden takes over on the 20th, right? If he goes and rescinds these executive orders, he's showing his hand, right? He's going to have to sell it to the American people if the American people are paying attention. I don't think they are, to be honest. If people were paying attention, they wouldn't believe the crap that they believe. But if we had a real press, he would have to explain why he wanted to rescind these actions, right? And it would never make sense, because if it's funding the Chinese military, then you shouldn't be investing in it. You're not American, right? Any transaction by a United States person or within the United States that evades or avoids has the purpose of evading or avoiding. So basically, if you were trying to invest in China, the Chinese Communist Party, through other means where you couldn't get caught, that's also prohibited. Any conspiracy formed to violate any of the prohibitions set forth in this order is prohibited. So then Section 3 is going to tell you how they're going to do it, what different organizations owe to the president in so many number of days. In here, he's going to define specifically what different definitions, what a communist Chinese military company means. He's going to go through that, right? And this is all the ways that the Secretary of Treasury can tie it to him. And then, United States person means any U.S. citizen, permanent resident, entity organized under the laws of, so any company, organization, 501c3, anything. So these are the types of things that get a lot of Trump supporters thinking, like, right before the inauguration, Trump's just going to go arrest a bunch of people, because there's probably a bunch of people we could arrest. I'm not sure that we have the apparatus in place to arrest them, and I'm not sure we have I'm not sure we have an executive branch. Not really. Not one that's there to enforce the law. I believe we have an executive branch insofar as protecting itself. Like, not the presidency, but protecting all the organizations organized under it. Right? The FBI, CIA, NSA. They're going to want to protect their interests. So say the CIA is invested in China, trying to make money or trying to gain some kind of foothold. They're going to ignore this wholesale. They're going to say, no, we're not doing that. And then they're going to do it. All right. So, and it's going to say is consistent with applicable law, blah, blah, blah. So that's pretty much the order. I don't know if there's any questions you specifically have against it, but basically, you're not allowed to invest in China. In any company that is considered a Chinese military company. Now, at this point, if you go to the, what's it called? National Defense Strategy. (2018). You can actually read it, and it's not super complicated. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. Let's see. So there's an unclassified version of it. Let's see if I can find it. So here's a good summary of it. But in 2018, Trump basically declared that China is the largest threat to America. The reason why the Democratic Party and the Republican Party a lot is always pointing at Russia is they don't want you to pay attention to what China's doing, A. B, they don't want you to pay attention to what we're doing in Africa. Russia doesn't really get involved with Africa. They're messing with Eastern Bloc nations, formerly Soviet nations. They're messing with the Baltic Sea. They're messing with Turkey. Everything basically directly surrounding them and flying incursions into it. So it's pretty easy to tie Russia to a lot of the things that they want to spend money on. Wars in Syria, Lebanon, Oman, Yemen. They want to spend that money, and they want to keep their donors. We should just call them investors happy, right? So China is a strategic competitor using predatory economies to intimidate. But if you look, I'm pretty sure it's in here. So, North Korea seeks to guarantee regime survival and increase leverage, seeking a mixture of nuclear, biological, chemical, conventional, and unconventional. Right? And it pops up 4 times in here. Somewhere. What's the next one? 2. Okay, well, I'll tell you, in the official one, it actually defines the different tactics that China would use, and among them is biological, such as the Chinese virus. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that, like, oh, COVID-19 is this because it was made in 2018. But it does say that that's a potential source of attack from a near-peer adversary. What's a near-peer adversary? Well, every 3 years, they do the triennial defensive review, where the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff and the Joint Chiefs go before Congress, and they have to say whether or not America would win what they call a three major theater war, right? So a China and two Russias, or a Russia and two Chinas, right? And the answer is the same every time. It's, yeah, we would win, but it wouldn't feel like we won, which is basically losing, right? And so, how'd I get on that? Okay, so a near-peer adversary would be considered somebody who could fight us in the air, sea, space, all the different planes and domains that we can fight on, they would be able to fight on, right? And so there's only two of those in the world that are considered potentially, and that would be Russia or China. More so China. Why? Because when you look at GDP of Russia, 1.7 trillion, right? So they don't even rank in the top 10. Okay? 1.7 trillion. Japan times 5. America, they're like 1/14 of our economy size. China is the only one that makes enough money to compete with us. We could literally just dumpster them. Russia, I mean, let's top 10 GDPs, Europe. Money matters. It's like, okay, who would we be able to fight, right? And when you look at, so Germany, United Kingdom, France, Italy. Italy has a larger GDP than Russia, okay? Like, that should show you, what kind of resources they would be able to leverage towards a real war. Yes, they have nuclear weapons. Yes, they have, a history of being able to do things asymmetric type warfare. But when you're talking about a true near-peer adversary, it's about what kind of resources could they leverage against us, right? And what could we leverage against them to win a protracted war, right? There's only one country in the world that comes close, and that's China, right? Way down the list is, Germany. Yeah, pretty much allies, supposed allies anyway. And so that's the deal on that. Do you have any more questions about why he would target specifically securities investments? Does that make sense? Like, targeting them is they invest in everything and buy influence in our country over it. And also, that train goes both ways. So when I showed you Donald Sussman's, it's not China Investment Corp, New China Capital Management. Cool. If you're just joining, New China Capital Management is the company that Donald Sussman started. It's an investment company. Donald Sussman gave $9 million to Joe Biden's campaign, right? So Cathay Capital, family of funds managed by New China Capital Management. So there's three companies that own New China Capital Management. One of them is Donald Sussman's company, which is also called New China Capital Management. And then the other two is one that invests in China, and then the other one invests Chinese money in other countries, right? So literally, three companies own it. One of them, 1/3 of it is Donald Sussman, the guy who donated $9 million to Joe Biden. And then one of them invests in stuff in China, and one of them invests external to China. That's the deal. Now, you might say, why would any American company or free country want to invest in a Chinese company? Because it really doesn't make sense, because at any point the Chinese government could come in and take control, right? And just be like, bye, your shares don't exist anymore. This company's been dissolved. You're blah. They're attempting to buy influence in China. It's either that, or they're doing it at the behest of the Chinese government. The Chinese government is saying, you need to invest in this, and then we'll allow you to sell iPhones in our country. Or you need to invest in that, and we'll allow you to do this in our country, right? They're trading, right? Similarly, I discussed it previously, but Bill Barr used to talk all the time about how, do you really think China would let Apple sell iPhones inside of China that didn't have a backdoor in them? And the answer to that is no, right? Like, there's no way that the Apple product, iPhone, does not have a backdoor that the Chinese government has access to. The scarier question is whether or not all Apple devices have that backdoor that the Chinese government has access to. Yeah, we know the Chinese government watches their own people, but has Apple given them a backdoor to watch us? To watch our president, to watch anybody who uses an iPhone or an iMac or an iPod, right? That's the scarier thing, and it's possible, right? Generally, companies don't make multiple versions of software because that just doubles your cost. Like, oh, we're going to send this one out to here and we're going to send that one out to there. That just doubles your cost of managing it, support, technical support, security fixes, bug fixes, all that. Like, it just doubles all that. So typically, if it's in one of their devices that's coming out this year, it's going to be in the other ones, right? And it's all made on the floor of in China. It's all installed in China, in the Foxconn factory. So then boxed up and shipped to you. It's a scary time when you can look and you can literally, right in front of your face, they tell you, hey, we're right here. We own these guys. And we own these guys. And they own everything. They own CNN. They own MSNBC. They own everything. And they can tell them all what to do. And the worst part is they don't even have to. These companies know what China wants them to do. Okay? It's like you working for your boss. You just know what makes your boss happy. And if it's shutting up Donald Trump, or pretending that riots aren't happening, or pretending that riots are happening, or whatever, you just do. Most people do what their bosses do, want them to do. I've never been that guy. I suck at it. That's why I'm trying to make it go with this streaming thing. Now, if you want an example of it, you probably asked yourself earlier in the year, why didn't these police all just quit, go on strike? Like, they should have. They had every right to. Their mayors, their governors, their city councils, we're all against them, calling them criminals, getting on the news, making a name for themselves at the expense of their police force. You'd figure the police would just strike. But they have kids to feed. They have to feed their families, man. Right? And that's the scary thing, right? Is you have so many people in America are in debt. So many households don't have any savings. And the lockdowns didn't help that. So many people were kicked out of work. So many people with jobs were put in a situation where they had to help other people they cared about through. It put us in this precarious situation where people can't just quit at a protest and go get another job. They can't just move on. They can't take it on the chin and do the right thing. Because nobody makes anything themselves anymore. Nobody's, there's still farmers out there. There's still people out there, but they're not just feeding their families, keeping a roof over their heads. And our government's got us chained down. You've seen the videos of people where they're not allowed. You're not allowed to just have solar. You have to have solar that feeds into the local utility companies' lines, and you're not allowed to have your own rainwater, solution where you collect rainwater and then filter it and use it to water your land or feed your shower or whatever you do, right? Slowly and surely, liberty's disappearing in our country to the point where there's no jobs where you can provide for yourself strictly off of it, And every time I say that, I think about that scene in the Batman, where the bad cop takes the dude's falafel or whatever and doesn't pay him, and he's like, man, I'm trying to feed my kids, and he's like, what, they don't like falafel? And he's like, actually, like, it was a joke video. I think it was, I forget, but he's like, actually, that solves most of my problems. Like, creating things for yourself and feeding yourself and having your own access to knowledge rather than taking it from the source and being able to keep power on in your house and all those things, they're not just important for your own personal edification. It's also important in terms of maintaining control of the world for yourself, right? As you've got this situation where you're not allowed to have your own power, you're not allowed to have your own water, you're not allowed to have your own sewer system, you're not allowed to have anything. The internet is absolutely controlled by these few companies that are absolutely controlled by China. I love that, you turn on your news and they're like, they banned Parler. Yay! And everybody's supposed to cheer. Sorry, I missed that. Welcome to the America now under new management. Absolutely, right? But they tell us we're supposed to cheer that Trump got banned, and he was the one causing the trouble. Nobody would have known what Trump was saying on Twitter every day if the media didn't tell us what he was saying on Twitter every day. Nobody would have had a clue, man. They were the ones doing it. They were the ones stirring the pot. Most people aren't on Twitter. Twitter's fucking stupid. I don't need to hear what Kim Kardashian thinks about anything ever, or Kanye West, or Donald Trump. All I need to do is see what they do. Right? I don't need to hear Joe Biden's policies on things. And by the way, when he does talk, he usually says something fucked up, like he created the most expansive and inclusive election fraud system in history. And then you tell me he didn't mean that. So why do we care what anybody says? You're just going to change it. All I care about is your policies and your actions. It took 20 years of my career, 18 of it, of having my generals, my officers, tell me about the threat of China, about the ever-increasing threat of China. And the Joint Chiefs would go to the president every time and say, we need to make this the priority, we need to make this priority. Bush, Obama, Clinton, first Bush. But they didn't do it. Trump did it. Trump said, yep, China's the threat. Right? You didn't see this huge outpouring of care or love or affection of the people of Hong Kong fighting for their freedom this year. But our president filed an executive order in support and held a press conference that they didn't show on TV. You tell me what people say and do doesn't matter. Because when they say something I don't like, you go, they didn't really mean it that way. And when they say something I do like, you go, you tell me it was terrible that they said it. There's no winning on that front. You need to have your own access to information. Anyway, I think this is a pretty long fucking stream. Let me see how long we're in. Pull this over. I use OBS. 1 hour and 48. Hey, Barons, I really appreciate you hanging out. Anybody else here in chat? I think there is. If there's something you want me to talk about or go into, I'm happy to do it. Just let me know. Otherwise, I think I might go through the news, continue going through the news of the day off of Real Clear Politics and see what that says. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'll do that for a little bit. Sorry, the sun's coming in over my projector screen. I don't have a second monitor yet. Working on it. I can't really see what's going on. All right, cool. Let's go back to... Oh, that's not working. Real Clear Politics. So I like Real Clear. I talked about it at the beginning, but I like it because it allows you to look at what everybody's trying to spin for the day. So can the Republican Party be saved? Leftists are colonizing red towns. Biden's new challenge, holding Trump accountable. Democrats are using Capitol riot to consolidate power. Are we ready for the next round of insurrection? Crucial questions remain unanswered about Capitol siege. The real lesson of Trump's social media silencing. This won't end well for Twitter. Mitch McConnell's impeachment endgame. There's a lot of theories going on about impeachment. People on the right are saying that the reason why they're doing it is they're afraid that Trump's going to declassify docs right before he walks out the door. I actually see that's possible. Now, if you wanted to ask why I think that that's possible, it's actually kind of weird. Historically in our country, politicians have followed precedent, right? So Why didn't Trump lock up Hillary Clinton? She obviously broke the law. It was clear as day. You're not allowed to fucking have classified information. Take it. You're not allowed to take it out of a government facility without need. It's supposed to travel by courier. It's certainly not supposed to be emailed in through unsecured channels. There's a whole lot of things that were fucked up about that. And it all happened, and they said it was an accident, leave her alone. And then Trump said, I'm going to lock her up, but he didn't lock her up. Why? Because she wasn't in power. Precedent in our country is when they're no longer in power, just leave them alone. And we'll change the law, adjust whatever for next time to make sure that they can be held accountable or that it can't possibly happen. Similarly, as a point of comparison, they did lose their fucking minds the other day. They said, the insurrectionists or the rioters took classified information out of Nancy Pelosi's office. Not possible. Not if she was following the law. It's not. You're not allowed to leave it unattended. It has to be locked away in a safe, secured. There's no plausible way in which they exited the building with classified information unless they were mismanaging the classified information in the first place. End of story. Okay? So, rather than worrying about what they took, which we should, obviously, if they took something, everybody in the Capitol needs to be retrained, because it shouldn't be possible. And the fact that they thought it was okay to leave it behind in their offices means that they don't even pay attention to what the hell they're doing most of the time. But anyway, we operate off a precedent. Typically, you do not arrest somebody who's no longer in power. It's just not something that we do, right? So for them to be going for the impeachment 7 days out from the inauguration, they're changing the precedent. All of which is dangerous, right? I knew why Trump didn't go after Hillary. I knew it. Anybody who's paid attention to politics long enough knew it. But for some reason, they think it's okay to do it to Trump. I think it's because anything they say immediately gets the backing of the media. I really hope that we can get to a point where we'll actually have a real press in our country. Because we don't. We have just entertainment. It's like WWE, right? Like, when I was a kid, I really believed that the World Wrestling Federation was real. You know? That they were telling me that this fight was actually happening, and that dude actually hated that guy. And, oh my god, they teamed up. Oh my god, so cool. It's really not. It's not cool when it's the presidency. It's not cool when it's our actual governments operating like it's the World Wrestling Federation. But that's what's happening now. Whatever's going to get you to click links and believe what they want you to believe and vote the way they want you to vote. And in a very real way, it doesn't really matter how you vote anymore. It really doesn't. They'll just win. They win. Why? I'm not allowed to say without getting banned. But they'll win. We will never see. I won't say we'll never. It's highly unlikely we'll ever see a Republican president again. Unless he's more beneficial to China. Or she is more beneficial to China. Due to everything I've seen. I showed you how Dominion... you know what? Maybe I didn't have... Hey, Baron, did I have the camera up when I was showing the Dominion SEC filings? So, Dominion's owned by Staple Street Capital. You'll see, you get the fact checks. Oh, fact check. Brother-in-law doesn't own Dominion. Voting... Like, literally. It's absurd. They immediately want to tell you that it's not true. I didn't even ask any of this shit. Right? Google knows how to answer. Bing knows how to answer these questions. Sorry, I said the wrong name. Who owns Dominion? It's right here. Let me make sure you guys can see it this time. Okay, cool. So you get opinions, blah, 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 blah. Right here on Wikipedia, which I don't trust. I'll get into another day. Right here, you're going to see owner, management, Staple Street Capital. Okay? Who? Staple Street Capital. SEC filings. Now you can go right to the SEC's website, right here. Let me make sure. Sorry, one sec. All right, cool. So you can go right here to their SEC filings, and it is let's see, 2020, 2015, 2014, 2014. So they've filed literally just that. This is establishing themselves, right? And then you get up here to 10/08, 2020. October 8th, 2020. They file this. And I can show it to you again. Entity name, primary issue, Staple Street Capital. Who gave them the money? Whoever that is. More importantly, investment fund, private equity fund. Private equity means not anybody can invest in it. They only take money from certain people. Recipient, UBS Securities LLC. Total offering, $400 million. So, October 8th, Staple Street Capital gets its first money given to them since 2015, and it comes from UBS Securities. UBS Securities, I established earlier, is owned by China. Swiss Investment Bank, who owns 24.99% of UBS Securities Company LTD. The other 75% is owned by the Chinese Communist government. Now, headline.usa, I'm not sure, but I have verified this. That 75% is owned by Beijing Guoxing, Guangdong Group, China Guodian, and Kofco Group, right? So UBS is notorious for being the most secretive Swiss bank of when Swiss banks are notorious for being secretive themselves, and then this particular one is considered the most secretive, and it is owned 75% by the Chinese Communist government. So Dominion gets one $400 million payday a month before the election from China. You got me? I don't think a Republican president, unless they're willing to play ball, will ever win again. But I also don't believe in the Republican Party anymore. I don't think it really exists. I think it's all just been a shell game that they've been playing with us, getting us to hate each other so they don't hate themselves. All right, so I think I went back over everything I showed you earlier when I only had the camera on me. Sorry for that. Maybe I'll try to break this up into smaller videos and stuff like that later. Let's see what else we got in the news. Oh, so you guys may have missed this. What was his name? Special Envoy to Syria. A shell game. So this should tell you who's really in charge of our country, right? This was a while ago, but a lot of people missed it and they don't understand how important it is. Outgoing U.S. envoy to Syria says he hid true number of troops from Trump team. Veteran diplomat James Jeffrey admits playing shell games to hide the number of U.S. soldiers in Syria following Trump's order to withdraw. Urges Biden not to rejoin Iran deal. So, in our country, our Constitution is built that you will always have civilian control over the military. That is why the president is considered the commander-in-chief. The president is elected by the people, supposedly, and the president becomes the absolute commander of all military forces in our country. So when the president says, get everybody the fuck out of Syria, we get everybody the fuck out of Syria. That's the law. When the president files an executive order saying all departments have to lower their energy usage by a certain date, which did happen in the early 2000s, right? The only ones who really have to do it is the military. The military had to lower their energy usage. You know how they did that? They cut the number of HVAC troops, heating, ventilation, and cooling. They said, okay, well, we need all our resources. We can't not use jet fuel to fly planes. We can't, not use gas, da 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 da. So what they did was they just cut the number of people who could fix the air conditioning and heating. And what it meant is that you'd have more downtime when the air conditioner broke or the heat broke. It would take longer to get it repaired. And that's how we cut our energy usage. You literally couldn't use this stuff. It was amazingly intelligent, but we had to do it. You could tell the Department of Treasury to do it, and they'd be like, oh, we can't. And that's okay. Right? You could tell the Department of Justice to do it, and they could say, it was really hard, we couldn't get there. But if the president tells the military to do it, alongside all the other departments, then it has to happen. It is in order. Does that make sense? So when the president says, get everybody out of Syria, which is smart, I can get into that if you want me to, we have to. And you get from this guy that, I think the quote might be in here, I'm not sure. We were always playing shell games to not make clear to our leadership how many troops we had there, Jeffrey told the Defense One outlet in an interview published Thursday. The number of U.S. soldiers remaining in Syria was a lot more than the 200 Trump agreed to leave there. The actual number of soldiers still deployed to the area is unknown. The force left behind was able to keep the Islamic State down and prevent Russia and Syria from expanding their territory, Jeffrey said. False. What Syria withdrawal? There was never a Syria withdrawal, Jeffrey said. When the situation in northeast Syria had been fairly stable after we defeated ISIS, Trump was inclined to pull out. In each case, we then decided to come up with 5 better arguments for why we needed to stay, and we succeeded both times. That's the story. That's not the same thing. Either you went to the commander and said, hey, we got to stop, we got to keep doing this because A, B, C, and D, or you played shell games and lied to him about the number of people remaining. If you won the argument, like he says he did here, then you would have won the argument and you would have only left 2 people there. 200 people there, because that was what the commander-in-chief decided. But no, that's not what you did. You kept way more people than that there, and you won the argument for 200 people. Now, why does that piss me the fuck off? Because you have military members, you have American citizens' family members in harm's way, and the President of the United States doesn't even know they're there. That should piss everybody off. That is the standard operating procedure of our government, is to lie to the commander-in-chief, the person we elected, the person we're in charge of. So who's in charge of this guy? Who's in charge of these people who make these decisions? Apparently not the president. When you want to talk about the deep state, like they talk about the deep state all the time. I don't know about that. I know this. I know that this is what happened. That the president ordered something and they said, nah. Forget about the Capitol. Forget about Antifa. Forget about CNN or MSNBC or Fox News or any of them. Those are big stories. For my money, this is the biggest story of the year. It's the absolute biggest story of the year, because this is the proof that the deep state exists. That there are people so embedded in our government that they don't even tell the president what's going on. And they think that that's okay. That he felt so comfortable to do it that he fucking went on an interview and said he did it. That's how normalized that sort of behavior is in our federal government right now. Anyway. All right. So you don't need a grand conspiracy. What it is a bunch of people doing whatever the fuck they want without any oversight. Without anybody stopping them, without having to report the truth to anybody. Like, if I lie to my boss in the military, I can go to jail. Lie to the commander-in-chief as a federal employee, you're fine. That's cool. No problem. Right? All right, so what have we done today? We went over Staple Street Capital, who is the owner of Dominion, who got $400 million from a Chinese investment company uh, less than 30 days before the election. So don't tell me that they're not owned by China. You got $400 million from them, right? That's direct. That's not through BlackRock. That's through a Chinese fucking company, okay? So don't bullshit me. Next, I showed you how Russia's not really a threat because it has a smaller GDP than BlackRock. Japan, Germany, the United Kingdom, France, India, Italy. I mean, it's crazy. Russia's number 11 on this list. Okay? Or 12, I think. Yeah, no, it's 11. So, Russia's not the threat. The guys with the money are. Okay? And oddly, China GDP is $14 trillion, and the fucking GDP, how much assets that BlackRock owned at the end of 2020 was 7.8 trillion. So they're the number 3 largest economy in the world, and they're a private investment firm that the president signed an executive order on. Anything else I should cover today? I don't know. I think I did a lot. We went over the news of the day. So you can't really, this is the thing, is what's the news? They all ignored this story, and they're trying to talk to you about, the Capitol, the impeachment, whether or not that's worth doing. That's not the story. It doesn't matter if Trump gets impeached. First of all, Trump never called for violence. Never. So whatever the fuck your articles of impeachment are, he called for people to come to the Capitol and protest. That's literally what every person in Congress did this year. They told them to come protest. So whatever impeachment they do, the purpose of it is not to impeach the president. The purpose of it is something else. We just don't know. The right-wingers say that it's because Trump's going to declassify documents. But by all means, declassify every fucking thing. I mean, the United States government came out this year and said UFOs exist. And our media yawned. They were like, well, I mean, what else are we going to get this year? Multiple scientists have come forward saying that, yeah, there's no way that COVID was not created in a lab. Yawn. They yawn about everything that matters, but they don't yawn about the Capitol building being stormed by a bunch of people who look like the only thing they've ever stormed was in a video game. All right, guys. I think I'm going to call it there. I'll probably get back on tomorrow, and we'll go over to... we'll see what else is going on in the news. Baron, thanks for hanging out, giving me the watch time. I really, really, really appreciate it. I don't know who else is in chat. I don't know if it shows me. Let me see. Participants. Oh, was it me? Maybe I was the other person in chat the whole time. I don't think so, because it wasn't showing me 2 at all times. That's weird. Huh. Okay. Did you just say something? Anyway, yeah, we'll hit up the news again tomorrow. I really appreciate you hanging out. And if you have any questions, hit me up, man. There's plenty more topics to hit. I just, how about tomorrow we do the, what's it called? The Chinese spy list. Anybody down for that? I can go over that with you and show you where I found all the companies that are infiltrated by the Chinese Communist Party. Other than that, I mean, we'll just do what we do, man. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you, Patriots. Have a great night. And peace.